genre.
Hello, oncers. Timers? Once upon a timers? Anyways, welcome to Beyond Geek By Night, where we'll be discussing each episode of the Geek By Night podcast leading up to the series finale. On today's episode, we'll be discussing the 6th story arc, Identity Crisis. So get ready for the level 3 of the simulator, because we're about to go Beyond Geek By Night. I'm your host, Matt Bennett. And here is our awesome panel. I am joined today by creator and executive producer Scott Carelli.
Hi, everybody.
Director of Identity Crisis and voice of Gwen Allen, Ray Ruzzo.
Hello.
Voice of Mindy Gibson, Morgan Spencer.
Hey, what's up?
Voice of Elliot Markowitz, Matt Maassel.
Hi.
And voice of Madison Powers, Natalie Van Sistine.
Hey.
So just to recap, in this story arc, Identity Crisis, comprising episodes 21 through 24, Mindy is having an identity crisis. She quits the underdogs to focus on her schoolwork and her sorority. After a strange occurrence with students having their energy sapped from them, Simon and Mindy find out that their original suspect, Anita Chen, is not responsible. Meanwhile, Elliot binges Once Upon a Time with the ever-so-subtle Margaret in an attempt to move on from Gretchen, while Gwen and Victor hack into Lorelai's server to find out what she's hiding. Mindy and Simon are adorable and attend a party where it's revealed that Madison Powers is in fact the one responsible for the recent events. A conflict ensues, and Mindy and Anita are able to stop Madison and safely apprehend her. Mindy decides to rejoin the underdogs. Elliot comes to his senses and ditches Margaret. Gwen and Victor find out what Lorelai knows about Gretchen, despite Lorelai thinking that she erased Victor's memory. Madison is held captive in Lorelai's complex, and the mysterious woman recruits another member in the form of Anita Chen. All right.
A lot happens
Welcome,
in this
everybody.
episode. Jeez.
Yeah, there's a lot to this. So I always like to start out these episodes by talking to the people who have not yet been on a discussion podcast about how they got involved with Geek By Night and when they got involved. So I figured we'd start with you, Matt. Just tell us your journey for how your road led to Geek By Night.
Oh, man. Well, that means pretty much talking about when I met Scott. That's when it happened. Scott, when did I meet you? Is that like...
I don't remember meeting you. I just remember you just suddenly existing in my life.
That's not in my memory.
I don't remember your audition for Cupid Division. Did you audition?
Yeah,
I don't remember.
I showed up and I said some things.
Okay.
And then...
Usually how auditions work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I just that relationship with Scott. And I was going to be moving to Kansas City, and he wanted me to be involved with Geek By Night. And I was like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. And being an audio series, didn't have to show up in person or anything. So it seemed like one of the perfect ways to stay connected and still do some acting no matter where I ended up moving to.
Had you done voice acting before joining Geek By Night?
No. None.
That's pretty cool. Actually, a lot of people say that, so I think that's really interesting. What about you, Morgan? How did you end up on Geek By Night as Mindy?
Well, also, I met Scott as well as Matt doing the Cupid Division, and that's actually the first screen film thing I'd ever done, which I would say is my main passion. But I just showed up to this random guy's apartment to do like a screen test, I guess. And do you remember my audition, Scott?
I do remember yours because yours was the same time as Adam, right? Like you guys were there together, I think. With Matt. Now I remember. It was the three of you guys, I think. I think you all did the screen test together. And then I cast you all together, and it was callbacks, I think, for you and Matt. But Adam, it was like the first time he had shown up to an audition. I think, if I remember correctly.
This is so long ago.
Yeah.
So much has
you were a baby. Yeah, and I didn't know how much of a baby you were, but you were a child.
Yeah, like I feel like I was maybe it was like my last year of high school.
Yeah, it was.
I was about to graduate high school. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then Scott asked me to do Geek by Night, which is like the coolest thing ever. How could I say no to that? But first and only audio thing I've ever done. And here I am, I guess.
If it wasn't for that short film, Cupid Division, like this show, the reboot wouldn't exist. Like, it was like these guys, these two specifically, Matt and Morgan, were like, I working with them on Cupid Division, I was like, oh my God, they would be the perfect Elliot and Mindy if I ever brought that show back. And then I was like, you know what? They're so good. I have to bring the show back.
You have to.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you did. I'm so glad that you did. I love bragging to people about Geek by Night. So I'm happy to talk to everybody today, but and that's how that's how I met like my core best friends, I would say, is doing Cupid Division, or that like led me to everybody else, That was so long ago, man. But
2012?
Wait, was it 2012? Holy shit.
2013?
After 2020, it seems like no time could have existed before this. It's just
2020 has been 7 years long.
Yeah,
so.
It has. Yeah.
And Natalie, what about you?
Yeah, I was trying to think. I think I saw a casting call on Tumblr.
That sounds right.
was where I came across it. I had just graduated from college around that time, and I had come home to work because I couldn't find a job in Chicago at the time. And so I was just looking for any voiceover opportunities. It's fortunately gotten to the point where it's my day job now, but at that point I was still working part-time. And so I was just looking for anything that would work out. And I was like, oh, cool, another audio drama. And I would love to audition for those. I've been doing like audio drama podcasting since 2009. So I was just like, yes, anything else I can get involved with. That sounds great.
That's really cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always like asking people that just because it feels like everybody has a different story leading up to how they got involved in the show, because we have actors in other countries and people all over the place working on it. So I always like to hear about that. Mm-hmm. So we've got a couple of the underdogs here, and I think that's really cool. So I want to kind of dive into some of the main characters, particularly with Mindy and Elliot sort of being at the center of this episode. So I'm going to go to Matt and Morgan and ask you, in what ways are you most similar or most different from your character? Let's start with you, Morgan.
I feel super similar to Mindy sometimes, just in the sense that she identity crisis type of thing. Like I feel like is like naturally really good at some things in her life, and like not knowing exactly which group that she can conform to, because she's kind of like on the ends with all of them. Like being a sorority girl, it's so funny because she doesn't really fit in with any of the other sorority, what would you call them, sisters? God, I mean, so Morgan's different because I didn't even go to college. I have no idea the first thing about college or a sorority or fraternity or whatever, but she's kind of a head case, Mindy, sometimes, which I totally relate to. But she finds a way to like pull through because she has the tools, Yeah. Like, there's my answer.
Yeah, Mindy's like a more aggro version of you. I mean, that's kind of that's why I knew that you would be perfect for it, because
Scott knows me so well. So yes, please tell the listeners.
Well, no,
Morgan.
I that's why I knew that you would be perfect for it, is because I think you definitely have a lot of Mindy. I think Mindy's like, like I said, more aggro and a little more high strung than you are, but then again, I've seen you high strung, and then you're just like Mindy, like
exactly. That's relatable.
Yeah.
Depends on the day, I guess, Matt. If I am Mindy or not, or Morgan or Mindy or.
What about you, Matt? Are you Elliot?
Yeah, I thought about this. I would say I feel like Elliot really, where we share a similar thing is like we both thrive in like a certain energy or where we have a certain amount. We feel like we have a certain amount of control or understanding what's going on, but that's not the reality. So it's a lot of forcibly being put out of our comfort zones, whether with the people around us or the situation, and then trying to be like, oh no. So I definitely see that just with Ellie and me. With if I feel like someone has gone too far or things are getting a little out of hand, or I don't know, I'm trying to put a stop to that as best I can. And but with that, when put into like a corner, put into like a panic situation, then forced to improvise and forced to adapt. But it can be hard sometimes to make that transition. I guess it's really, really uncomfortable. So.
Yeah. And Elliot goes through quite a lot. This episode, he was in a pretty dark place. After seeing Gretchen during Ghost Story and all of that. So
I just got chills. That was intense.
Natalie, I want to get to you next because Madison Powers is obviously kind of the central villain of this story arc. And even before we know she has powers, she's kind of a mean girl. And I'm interested to know, like, had you played villainous or antagonist characters before? Is that something that you like to do?
Yeah, I get cast as that a lot. One of my recurring jobs is, those like really cheap point and click games they're point and click, find hidden objects games, and they're usually based on like fairy tales or some kind of really easy, cheap, royalty free idea. I do about one of those a month, give or take, sometimes multiples, and I say about half the time, they send me a script and they say, we need Natalie. Literally, they'll put, we need Natalie on the script, and then there'll be I'm either one of the villain characters, or they will keep sending me these like exposition machine, like magical amulets that talk to you and tell you all the backstory. So I tend to play a lot of evil queen, evil fairy, all kinds of stuff. So for me, evil characters tends to be a lot of my bread and butter, which is funny. And but I never get to do the mean girl stereotype. That was what I was so excited about with Madison, is no one ever hires me to do that. And I was so excited.
Because before she's even revealed as a villain, she's just a regular person. I mean, she and Mindy clash, but she's, just like everybody else. So
she's the Regina George.
Oh, hell yeah!
Very much like the
Regina George.
God, I love the musical so much.
I know. It's yes. Oh my, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think I was channeling probably a little more Charisma Carpenter than Regina, but I definitely same energy though.
Sounds like you were right in your element with this.
Oh yeah, it was very fun. Cool. I mean, she's the antithesis of me, which is really hilarious. I have never been that person other than maybe the sheer determination to get something done, but it's always fun to play something that's just totally out in left field.
Be somebody else, yeah. So Ray, I've got a question for you because
yes,
this episode has some really, really intricate scenes and sound effects. Like a lot of Mindy's powers we can only hear, or they're sometimes like recounted by other people or something like that. I'm interested to know specifically about the simulator room and with some of the superpower sound effects. What goes into making something like that? Is it a lot of trial and error, or do you know exactly what you want out of it?
I am not actually the sound effects person. So I do, when I'm directing, I'm mostly putting together the dialogue. And what gets layered in, I assume, by Tofty?
Me.
You.
Yeah.
Sorry, my bad. Well, then Scott takes everything I do and makes it pretty.
So, Scott, I'll ask you about the sound effects because I've got some other directing stuff to ask after that.
Okay, yeah. I feel like I've answered this question before, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where the sound effects come from. I don't know. I just try. I hear what I hear in my brain, and then I try to make that happen. Whether that's recording something myself or combining sound effects I find on the internet or whatever. I'm trying to create whatever soundscape I'm hearing in my mind when I read the script or when I wrote the script, and just trying to make sense of it. And it is hard. There's a balance that you have to have with audio drama because you don't want things to feel unnaturally exposition heavy, where people are like, look at that person over there doing this thing. Because you want it to sound natural, but you also need people to know what's going on. So it's just a tricky balance of finding the right sound effects that tell the story without having characters have to say it in dialogue, and also, using dialogue to the best of your ability to help with telling the story. But it's a difficult balance to get right. But that really just goes back to the scripting stage, and then a lot of trial and error in the audio design segment.
Yeah. Yeah, and on the dialogue side, this episode features a lot of really great Simon and Mindy scenes. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of development between the two of them in this episode and in the Friends and Enemies arc after this. When did you know that you'd like to pair them up, or was that just always the plan?
That was always the plan, because that's what happened organically in the last series, the original series, re-airing now on Patreon. So that kind of happened naturally between those two characters in that version of the show, and then this version of the show, I wanted to know going in that that's what I was aiming towards. So I kind of changed their characters ever so slightly to sort of point toward each other, even if, I don't know, I tried to make it feel as natural as possible. Hopefully it doesn't feel like it was forced or anything like that. But yeah, I had a heavy rewrite hand on all of their scenes in this episode, just because I wanted to make sure that their chemistry was just right, and what their relationship means to me. What I see as their charisma, because I find the two of them as romantic characters interesting because they're so opposite. But I think this episode, they tell some backstory and things, and I think you start to learn that they kind of fill in each other's gaps in a lot of ways, which to me I think makes the best relationships. The whole opposites attract thing is a trope, and it's not usually done properly. It's usually this person's a stick in the mud and this person's showing them how to live, and that's it. That's the opposites attract. Whereas I think it's more intricate than that, and I wanted to have their conversations in this episode really highlight how they kind of help each other in different ways. You will see more of that as the series progresses, but this was kind of the first opportunity to really do that. And so this episode means a lot to me from that perspective.
So Ray, Scott mentioned the chemistry between Simon and Mindy, and they have quite a few fun mm-hmm. scenes together in this episode. When you're putting together those kind of dialogue heavy, developmental scenes between two different characters, what is your approach to something like that? Are you just do you have each actor's lines and then put them together? Is it more collaborative with the two of them?
So from a technical perspective, everyone, when they record their lines, they do it a couple of different ways. And since I have been around since the beginning and the, blossoming Simon and Mindy relationship in the original, or just their chemistry together, I was a big shipper from way back when, so I'm very invested in this relationship to begin with. But I also, I guess, like Scott and his sound effects, I have a feeling in my head of how it should sound. Mm-hmm. And then when I find the takes that hit that, I put them together. Mm-hmm. If there isn't, and sometimes I'm wrong, sometimes I'm listening to what the actors have, put forward, and I'm like, oh no, this is actually how it's supposed to go. But it's really that we do have an endpoint that we're trying to get to. So I want to use the takes that feel like they're building towards something important. Mm-hmm. If that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
That's what directing is on this show, because we don't get to do this in like a recording booth with like the whole cast. We do that table read, and I give some pointers here and there. I don't do a lot of that. Just like when I can tell they're like totally thinking on a different lane than what they should be, and I have to like, just go be on this road, and then everybody's fine. But typically, everyone records like 3 very different takes, and then directing on this show is, like Ray said, it's like she can't really communicate with the actors, but what she can do is create the scene out of all the different takes and everything, and that's what directing is on this show. So it's like backwards directing in a lot of ways. And
it's really fun though, because sometimes you have in your head from the script what you think it should sound like, and then it comes out of the actor exactly how you thought it should sound. It's just like, yes, this is beautiful, this is perfect.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to, sometimes you gotta create a take. Sometimes you gotta take 2 different takes, one where you like the beginning and one where you like the end, and you gotta splice those together to turn it into the performance you wanted it to be. But I think that I've never had any complaints from cast so far about a take that we chose. So I think we've got a really good team of directors, and Ray is definitely one of them. So I always give her the squidgy episodes. The ones with something that I'm like, okay, I know this episode needs to happen for character development reasons, but
it's problematic.
It's problematic, so you need to have this so that at least there's a female perspective on it somewhere, please.
A female, queer, gender non-conforming perspective.
Yes. Of course. But yeah, a different perspective than what I have. So yeah, I always give Ray these episodes. Ray previously directed, of course, the 4th story arc, the Gibson-centric one. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Ray's been getting those episodes. Hopefully, maybe if I can get them to direct an episode this season. Then maybe Ray will direct like one that isn't so squiggy. No, I don't think we have any like kind of like squiggy episode, because we have a goal to get to the end. So I haven't had a lot of time to do anything that like I want to comment on this thing. So if Ray gets to direct an episode, which I hope they do, but if Ray directs an episode. Yeah. Okay, good. All right, good. We didn't talk about this, but yeah, you should direct an episode.
No, I'm like, gimme.
Okay, all right, good. So yeah, we'll talk about that later. But yeah, definitely Ray will have a normal episode, a quote unquote normal.
Yay!
Yeah.
So this question's for Morgan. When you listen back on the episodes, jumping off of that point about directing and choosing those lines, putting them together, what do you think about when you hear what specific like takes were chosen? Like, are you surprised at what ended up in the final product and how things were put together?
When I listen to it, I'm like, oh, I don't suck. Like, because recording, especially if you're by yourself, I mean, a lot before Scott moved, I had the privilege of being able to record with Scott so he could be there with me and like help direct me while I was recording. But were you there with me for this one? Yeah,
I was.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm like super like hard on myself, I guess, and it's like recording is really hard, especially being like primarily a stage actor, like that being the bulk of what I've done. Like Scott constantly has to be like, yo, you're not on the stage. So yeah, when I hear it all put together, it kind of blows my mind. I don't know how you guys do it. That's intense. I mean, it's enough for me to even come up with like 3 takes, and I don't know how you go through those and put them together. And it's beautiful, really. But when I listen to it, I'm just very pleased.
I have so many recordings of Morgan of being like, how do you want me to say this? And me being like this. And then she'll be like, she'll do it. And then she'll be like, I feel so stupid.
Yeah.
There's so many of that because she just doesn't.
We just need a whole blooper thing of Morgan being like,
blooper reel would be excellent.
I would love that if I had, just endless amounts of time to go through.
Right, exactly. Just to listen to me being like, oh shit. Let me do that.
Man.
Yeah, so earlier, Scott, you mentioned table reads, and table reads are something that we haven't really talked about on the show, so I'm interested to hear about who goes to a table read, where in the process is a table read done compared to like the writing and the actual release of the episode?
So the table read is basically done for 2 reasons. One, so that everybody can like kind of get chemistry and know how other people are probably going to perform stuff so that they know how to perform it when they're alone and recording their lines. But basically we write a script and we release it to the cast, and then we usually schedule the table read within like 2 weeks after releasing the script. And the idea of the table read is just that it's the chemistry stuff. And then it's also, an excuse to make sure that everyone has read the script before they start recording their lines. Because actors have a bad habit of being like, what are my lines? Okay, I'll just read those. And then sometimes it works out great. And then other times you get those lines and you're like, you don't know what this episode's about, do you? And so the table read is helpful for that. But in general, the people who come, it's like the main cast, anyone who can, we try to accommodate them to show up. But, you don't want to waste anybody's time that only has like 2 or 3 lines in an episode, because that's a lot of work to like schedule and show up and everything. But typically, it's whoever can show up and whoever has, the heavy lifting to do in that particular script probably needs to be there. And we'll usually schedule it more around them than some of the other cast members. And we've got one. This episode that you're listening to is coming out the day that we're doing our next table read. So we have one of those happening today for an episode for the new season. So
which I'm not invited to, and I get to listen to it with everybody else.
Yes.
Do you make any changes to the script based on these table reads? Do you find something during these reads sometimes?
Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes an actor will just be like struggling with a line, and I'll try and rewrite it. I'll take note of that and rewrite it to be so it's not such a, I don't know, like a puzzle to get out of their mouth. Because it's like who was that said that? Was it Harrison Ford? Like, you can write this shit, George, but we have to say it. So
this next one's for Matt. I'm interested to know, I have this being your first time on Beyond Geek by Night, but Elliot being such a major character in the show, what is your favorite part about working on Geek by Night, like the process of working on Geek by Night?
Oh man. So I'm going to kind of echo part of what Morgan was talking about, because it's just easy to, when you're alone, to have all that hypercritical, not necessarily negative, but I think I have like an idea of like, I want to do this and it's going to be like that. And then I record it. I'm like, man, that wasn't it. So I usually do. I mean, you guys can probably attest that, see the video files, audio files. I do like many takes of everything almost. but just overcoming that like mental barrier of it's like, it's okay, you can do it. And also getting used. So I'm in an apartment, and just if I can hear a neighbor either above or below, it makes me like really self-conscious too. It's like, I'm doing my line. Don't listen to me. It's not finished product yet. No, you can't hear it. And I'll even tell I'll like give these like sound canceling headphones to my wife. Like, hey, listen to some music. I'm going to record some lines. Yeah. So that's good. But I think it's good to lean into that and to just push into it long enough to overcome that discomfort and then kind of feel that groove. And then it's good after that. So that's probably my least favorite, then grows to most favorite part of working on it.
What about you, Ray? Because you have multiple roles on the show and are very involved. So what is your favorite part about working on the show?
I mean, I really love doing all of it. Like, I know that's really cheesy to say, but I really do. I mean, at this point, you know, I've been on since pretty much the beginning, so I'm really super invested in it, and I love Gwen. I love playing her. She's very close to my heart. I'm sure I've told this joke before, where I was playing Geek By Night on a road trip with my friend, and Gwen was described as the lesbian with anxiety, and my friend just looks at me and goes, "Oh, so she's you." I am very personally attached to her, but I do love directing because I love having a hand in, you know, getting to help shape it. And I really can't pick which I like better.
Ray's been this show's probably biggest cheerleader.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, that's been like from the very beginning. I think Ray has been around, and during the dark times, they were one of the only people who would keep bugging me about it. Like, yeah, remember that? What's that? And also
the thing we used to do.
Yeah, and also they would be excited about every step in the thing. Like when Tofty and I were doing the comic book, Ray was like, I want to read it. I'm excited about this. Yay, Geek by Night. And when I was going to do this is like a pilot or like a film script, Ray was like, send me every draft. Like, I mean, yeah, Ray is like this show's biggest fan.
I take my fandoms very seriously, and this is absolutely one of my fandoms.
That's pretty cool. I like watching or listening to stuff where the people who work on it are fans of it, and I think that comes off a lot with this show. You can just tell that everybody's excited to be involved. So this question's kind of for everybody. I'm interested to know if you have anything else to share about this episode. Like, it's something that maybe the listeners wouldn't get just from listening to the episode.
I was so excited about all of the Mindy and Simon stuff that in real life I was like, is there a Simon out there for me? Like, is there? I know. It was just like the cutest ever, and I like totally was all hard eyes about it in like real life, and totally felt that shit and wanted a Simon because it was so cute.
OTP.
Just that's pretty much it though. Never found my Simon. Guess I should log off now.
There's a Simon out there for everybody.
Right. There really is.
I am curious about how Matt felt about what Elliot went through in this episode, and what we put him through, especially in the back half of the season, because Elliot's gone through a lot.
He's gone through the ringer.
Yeah.
Seriously.
You want to know what I feel?
Yeah.
Okay. I think it was really great. A really good thing to do to Elliot, you know?
He deserved it.
If Elliot hadn't gone through that, we wouldn't have Gibson being there for him and kind of see this other side of other people, and it that really bridging that separation between the two characters when the season first starts.
Yeah, I do like that. It's just always interesting when if you take a character and bring them down a lot, and then they're like Elliot is effectively not really giving much to anyone, so hardly at all. And but to have like Gibson come in, or just see how people are truly trying to get back into his life. It's a fun way to explore the character, and how I guess I always feel like you learn so much about characters too, based on how the other characters treat them and how they like that kind of relationship. So yeah, I like that. I like people trudging through the swamp of their life. Trying to make it out, but just I think it's always good.
Yeah.
Ray, how did you go about tackling what was happening in this, and what were your thoughts on it when you first read the script?
Oh, it's really painful. It's really painful because it is a very dubious situation going on between him and the delivery girl, who I am so sorry I have forgotten the name.
Margaret.
But yeah, you want to keep it in a realm where it's still like you understand his actions, but you also understand that they're not okay, without necessarily demonizing him for his choices, it was just like walking a tightrope. I tried to keep him as like understandable as possible, while still acknowledging like this girl is not really here, only partially here because she wants to be.
Right. It's because of his powers. Yep.
Yeah. It was definitely a fine line in the script of just sort of and like the breaking of the story of just sort of trying to figure out, because you can make that so dark, and you don't want to do that. And so it, just the idea of binging a show together is just like the least insidious version of this, but also knowing that she doesn't really want to be there, Like
the undertones of it and how real it is for a lot of females, I think, is, I mean, even though, like it's lighthearted and like we want to be.
But also, I think a lot of women and other people know what it's like to not leave a situation. Even if it's not overtly dangerous, there's still a level of discomfort, and staying with that discomfort out of politeness or perceived, like, I don't want anything to go wrong.
Right.
I don't want to set him off because you don't know.
Right.
And then you have the superpower element lumped in there.
Right.
So that just gives it an extra level.
Yeah. All of the layers.
Because, we know why he's hurting, but we also know more than he does about the truth about Gretchen and things like that after the reveal at the end of Ghost Story. So, there is a lot to it.
It's a lot, and I just wanted to do it justice.
You did.
For sure, yeah. And, it's great because, kind of like Matt said, it uses that sort of dark place where Elliot finds himself to bring about these other moments. Because, at the end of the episode, Elliot's standing under a speaker that's falling, and he's just kind of like ready to go. And he's just at like the absolute lowest he can be. And then, his friend comes and saves him. And you get these really cool moments out of it, despite the places that it went along the way. So I've got a question for Natalie. Madison Powers has powers of absorbing strength and energy of people around her. If you had drank the Catalyst energy drink and were in McKinney City when the accident happened, what would you want your superpowers to be?
Oh man, I think I've always wanted flying powers. I think that's like the big one that I definitely would like is just the ability to just like hover, fly. I don't know if that would be maybe like a gravity. Maybe I could make that into like a gravity controlling power if I really want to get specially like nuanced with it, so I can do as much as possible. But I think that's always been my dream power for sure. At this point, though, I will take the energy. I have fibromyalgia, so the idea of being able to take energy to use, I would take that. I would also take that in a heartbeat, honestly. And not be evil with it. Yeah, and not be an evil energy vampire about it, but just like, like someone's got a child that won't calm down and go to bed. I can help with that. I can use that.
Just call me.
That puppy you have that won't leave you alone. Call me.
Kids screaming on an airplane. There's a lot of uses for this. Yeah.
Oh,
in a
God.
healthy way where it's for the good of society. I can do that.
Morgan, would you keep Mindy's powers or would you want other powers?
Oh.
It's the best. Yeah. I tell people at Geek By Night, I'm like, yeah, and she can teleport, which is the coolest. So, yeah, it's fun. I feel like that's a very Mindy answer. Yeah, it's the best.
What about you, Matt?
So many to choose from. Gosh, I don't think I would keep his powers. Man, I was something about like, what if I could just bounce or something?
Like the gummy bears?
Kind of like a bouncy ball.
Like jump from really high and not get hurt, kind of thing.
Yeah, like that. Like not have to worry about getting hurt by getting like things running into me or falling.
Like a bungee boy.
Bungee boy, yeah, that would be cool.
I think that's one of my favorite powers I've heard somebody say.
Yeah.
That's really great.
I do like
I just want to bounce around.
Yes. So that or oh gosh, I don't know. Maybe being able to like, do this kind of stuff. Yeah. Well, we'll stick with bouncing. Yeah, that's probably peak power.
Bouncing.
I love it.
Ray, I'm curious about your thoughts on Gwen's journey of distrust in this episode.
Oh. I really enjoy it because, I enjoyed playing it. I enjoyed editing it because it was kind of fun to have her go off on a little solo side mission with Victor.
Mm-hmm.
And, just this sense that something is wrong, and if no one else is going to help her, she's going to go and do it herself.
You're also one of the only, well, I mean, as of right now, you're the only director we have who's also a cast member.
So I was just going to ask, what's it like directing yourself?
Yeah.
Oh, it's cringy. It's so hard. Like, oh God, that's what I sound like.
How often have you gone back in while directing it and re-record a line?
And change my lines?
Yeah.
It has happened. It has absolutely happened. I don't think it actually happens that frequently, but there's been a couple of times where I was just like, oh, no, I got to fix this. And no one will know. No one will know I turned in bad lines.
Well, now we know.
Yep. All right. Does anybody have any final thoughts on these 4 awesome episodes?
I'll say up to this point, I think from a sound design perspective, the thing I've been most proud of that I've ever done is the cold open to this story.
In the simulator?
Yeah, with the giant robots and all of that. Because that was written by Jake Baker, one of the writers on this episode, and I got that and I was like, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to do this. But I wanted to try. So like I didn't, ask it to be rewritten or anything like that. We just rolled with it. I can't believe I pulled that off. To this day, I don't know how I did that. I don't know what sounds I was combining to make all of that happen, but I'm really proud of how it turned out.
Yeah, because there's even like a phone call and multiple phone calls on top of it, and it's very cool.
Yeah, I don't know how I did that, but I was I was extremely proud of that. It took me days. It's probably the scene that I just took the longest to sound design, I think, in the series history up to this point. I don't think any other scene took as long as that scene for me to create. So I'm very proud of that one.
But it's a fun way to come back. The first time I listened to this episode, I didn't know that they had a simulator of that fidelity. So I just assumed like we jumped in and they were fighting a giant robot controlled by a crazy guy. And, we knew all their powers and stuff and just kind of assumed, this is where they were when we came in.
Why not roll with it?
Yeah, just come out in a big way. And,
yeah.
Very fun. All right, y'all. I think that's all the time that we have for today. I want to thank, again, all of my guests today, Scott, Ray, Morgan, Matt, Natalie, for joining me. And thank you to all of you, the fans, the underdogs, for listening. If you'd like to support the show, please join the Dueling Genre Patreon at duelinggenre.com/support. You can also tell your friends, families, and followers to subscribe to Geek By Night on iTunes or Spotify or Stitcher or wherever else you get your podcasts. And stay tuned for the next round of episodes, the 4-part release of Friends and Enemies. Thanks for going beyond Geek By Night with us. I will see you next time.